We're back. We're going to continue now in our different segments on the different router bits that we use, the settings on them, what they're for, how to set them, and how to use them. So rather than take a lot of time trying to explain any more about it, we'll go right into it, give you the details as we go. Okay, I told you the other router bits. Now this is probably the most important router bit that I have in my hand. This is what we call a profile bit, and it's 2 flute. It's solid carbide. You can make dozens of signs with it before it has to be reground, and it's 15 degrees on one side down to a point, and then 45 degrees from the point out. So I designed this over a period of years. I designed a lot of cutters, and this is probably the best one that I've ever designed. And they're not commercially available, so if you want one, you have to give us a call because I have them made for us. So this is, and I'll show you a little bit more about what this does. Now we'll move on to another cutter. Okay, now moving on. The cutter you see here is a 60-degree cutter. Again, it's solid carbide, it's 3 flute, 60-degree angle, and this is used for inset letters. Any size inset letters, that's what this one is used for. The 1 inch, 1.5 or 2 inch inset letters, and you know what those are. If you don't, watch our other videos and you'll learn. So that's what this one is. This is a 3 flute, 60-degree, and it's for inset letters, 1 inch, 1.5, and 2 inch. And again, this is a standard commercial bit that you can buy from us. It's on the website, so just remember if you want this one, it's a 60-degree. Okay, now here is the 90-degree. Again, it's a solid carbide at a 2 flute, 90-degree angle. It's a standard cutter that is available commercially, but they're available on our website as well. Now this one is the one that we use for the background cleanup. Anytime we cut a graphic that has background on it, if we cut outset letters that we have the little cloud around the background, this is what we do the cleanup with. So this is a 90-degree, 2 flute, solid carbide. And I'll go into the different depths that we use for the different operations after this. Okay, now we're gonna talk a little bit about this profile bit and cutting these outset letters. You can see this letter A. Now, because the 1 inch letters, this is 1 inch letter, and because the 1 inch letters are a little tricky when you first start cutting them for outset letters, what we do is we recommend that you cut this in 2 separate cuts, 2 separate depth settings. So you start off your first setting on your first cut. This is a little vernier. You set this first cut at 1/8 of an inch depth. So you go all the way around this letter at 1/8 of an inch depth. Okay? Then you reset the depth to 3/16 or 187. So you start off at 125, then you reset it after you get that cut, and you go around again all the way around without touching where you've already been, and you cut it at 3/16 or 187. The reason for that is when you come back with your cleanup and you get ready to come in, you don't have such a tiny groove here that you have a chance to come in and nick it. So if you make your first cut at 1/8 of an inch, 125, then you make your second cut at 3/16, about 187, that gives you a buffer so that when you come in and do your cleanup, you don't bang into that letter. If you bang into the letter, the sign goes in the trash and you have to start all over again. So that's how you use the profile bit on the 1 inch outset letters. You cut those. We recommend that you cut those in 2 separate cuts. Also, if you get into smaller letters, it's going to be the same thing. You might get into a position where you want to do 1/2 inch letters instead of 1 inch. You're going to have to make a very, very shallow cut around your first cut and then go down deeper and open that groove up so when you're doing your cleanup, you're not banging into the letter. Now here's the same profile bit, and this is a 2 inch letter. And because it's a bigger letter, you don't have to worry so much about going and taking it in 2 cuts. You can go the full 187 or 3/16 approximately, make your cut all the way around very carefully. And then because it's wider at the top on the cut, when you get ready to do your cleanup, you've got a much wider groove here to come in and carve up to, so you don't have to worry about banging your letter as much. That's why on the small ones we do it in two, but on the bigger ones you can just go around this letter just fine, and then come in and do your background cleanup. We'll show you a little bit about this, but one thing I'll point out while I've got this letter up here, a lot of our customers, when they first start carving, they will take this letter A, and if you'll notice that this leg is narrower than this leg, and a lot of times when you do your layout, if you don't know that, you'll lay it out backwards, and anybody that knows what the letter should look like will know that it's backwards. But probably 93 out of 100 people would never know. But I just thought that I would point that out. Be sure when you're using the letters that have a wide leg and a narrow leg, be sure that the narrow leg generally goes to the left on it. Just be sure when you're laying them out which way you're orienting your letters. It makes a big difference in your signs. Okay, now here's the 90-degree cleanup that we were talking about. And by the cleanup, I mean this is what we do all of this cleanup around the outset letters. So when we get ready, this letter would have been carved and all of this wood would still be here. So what we do is we set it for 3/16, 187, and we cut this cloud around the letter. And then we just simply come back in after we get that cloud cut. We've got a groove around this letter. We just come in and clean all that background cleanup. You see us do that on all of the videos. But I just wanted to let you know that once you get ready to use this, you set it at 3/16 or 187 and do that cloud. And then you come back at the same depth and you just kind of do a circular motion and you clean all that up out of the background. So that's what this particular bit is for, so just remember that. Okay, now we're moving on to this 2-inch letter. 1.5-inch letters and 2-inch letters are basically the same. When you're doing the cleanup on these, this cutter will be set at somewhere around 1/4 inch, 250 thousandths. So instead of 3/16, you're going a 32nd more. But there's never any reason on signs that we carve and the way we carve them to go over 1/4 inch deep. It's just not necessary. If you're cutting over 250 thousandths deep, you're cutting too deep. It's harder on the router, it's harder on the guy holding the router, and it's damn sure tougher on the cutters. These are solid carbide cutters, but they will dull pretty fast when they get hot. And the deeper you carve, the more wood you're taking out of, the hotter they'll get. So keep your depth at 1/4 inch or less. This is just fine at 3/16, but it's also just fine in 1/4, and it makes a really, really nice cleanup at 1/4 inch. So somewhere between 3/16 and 1/4, but you're the sign cutters. We're making suggestions to you, but we want your signs to be the way you want them to be. What looks good to you will generally look good to your customers. So this is just a guide from 1/4 inch to 3/16 to 1/4 on the background cleanup around outset letters. Okay, now we're at the 60-degree 3-flute bit, and this is for inset letters. You'll see once the layout is made, you can set the depth of this so that it just does cut both sides of the letter. You'll notice even though this is an A, we cut this in one cut so that you don't have the wide leg and the narrow leg like you do on outset letters. So these will, once you get set up to cut these, you'll do them all just in one smooth cut. And so you set your depth at around 1/8 inch, but whatever it takes to make just a smooth cut and take out both sides of the layout line, and usually 1/8 inch to 3/16 is as deep as you'll ever go. Probably 1/8 inch on 1-inch letters. On bigger letters, you go a little bit deeper. But you go just deep enough so that your cutter takes out the line, but it doesn't take out too much, doesn't cut too wide, doesn't cut too deep. You don't want to punish this. This is 3 flutes of fine carbide. So don't punish it by trying to go too deep and getting it too hot. Okay, and here we are, same cutter. We're doing the 1.5 inch and the 2 inch inset letters. So the thing that you have to remember on these, 3/16 is as deep as you need to go, and most of the cuts you'll make all in one cut because that's the width of the cutter. And so you make this all in one cut, but when you have some of the letters that have wider legs, what you'll do is you'll come down one side and then you'll come back up the other side to get the other side. You won't set this deeper because it wouldn't make it any wider. So you'll have to make this in two cuts. You'll have to come down the one side and come back down the other side in order to clean it up. This side you make all with one cut. So, but you'll get used to excuse me, you'll get used to doing all this. We just wanted to make this video because we get so many questions from our students about, you know, what size cutters and what cutters were to use for what jobs and how deep, and we just wanted to let you know. And another thing to remember is when you're cutting letters that you've laid out, you know that you're going to, after they're laid out and you cut them and then you spray them black, you're going to have to sand them off. So when you sand them off, you're going to lose 5 thousandths, maybe up to 10 thousandths off of this surface. So this dimension, the width of this cut is going to change because 5 thousandths is going to come off of the surface of the board in order to make the board show up and have the black in the background. So just remember that how it looks when you cut it is not exactly how it's going to look once you get it sprayed and sanded off. Okay, that's a wrap on this video. So you've learned a little bit more about cutters and the settings and how we use them. Just want to, at the end of this video, I want to tell you about, we've revamped our website, Great Info for You. You can go on it now and you can click on the link, fill out the information, click on the link, and you can become a member of Dave's Science Video Club. We'll have preferred members on the club. Anybody that signs up for the club, we will have preferred videos from time to time, and they will be only for club members. Doesn't cost you anything. And anytime you want to opt out, just let us know. But there will be certain things that we'll make for preferred members, and that'll be members of the video club, that won't be available on YouTube. They'll still be available, but they just won't be available on YouTube. And we'll make sure that everybody in the video club, Dave Science Video Club, will make sure they know in advance about everything that we're going to have as far as exclusive videos. So that's the end of it.